Mercedes are not out of this title race, ladies and gentlemen. Mercedes, after the year they've had, after the start they've had in 2022 season, they are not out of this title race. The reason I'm even bringing this subject up is simply because all I hear is about Red Bull versus Ferrari, Ferrari versus Red Bull, Ferrari this, Red Bull that. And quite frankly, I'm actually shocked. I kind of woke up this morning and said to myself, do you know what? Mercedes are still in this title race. And what on earth is going on? Why is everybody ruling them out? Why is nobody talking about Mercedes? Now, listen, I'm not a Mercedes fan. Trust me. Look, if you can see on the handle there, McLaren Fan TV. I'm a McLaren man all the way through and through. But I've watched Formula One for a very long time. And this idea that Mercedes are no longer in this title race is absolutely absurd. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I can understand people's questioning of Mercedes because it's not been a good start. I'm not going to act stupid and say Mercedes have been fine. Nothing's going on here. They are running as normal. So everything is all blessed. However, what I am actually hearing though is that they're not in the title race this year. Even people like Toto Wolff is almost like downing tools before the season has really matured. We've had 3 races in 2022 and we're supposed to have 20 more. Now, whether that will be the case, because of course we've had a few cancellations, well, we've had at least one cancellation, which is the Russian Grand Prix. Whether that will get changed to something else is another matter. It's another question. But also, the Miami story, remember what I spoke about last week, and people in the comment section have said that, you know what, this race isn't cancelled yet. And apparently there's a 10-year plan for Miami to be hosting races for Formula One. However, as we read in that story, if you can go check that video out, they haven't quite got the permit. Is it the special events permit, something like that, something along those lines? They haven't quite got that yet. So can we confidently say that that Miami will host a Grand Prix? Only time will tell. So welcome anyway to the F1 Daily News Show. I might sound a little bit more assertive than I normally would do, but it's because purely I'm hearing nonsense, And I know Formula One world, I know the Formula One social media world, I know F1 Twitter and all these sort of things. I know that they can say some dumb things, they can say some wild stuff. But what I am noticing, I'm seeing Mercedes fans starting to reminisce about the W11 and what a car it was and everything. And I'm sitting there like, don't you worry, Mercedes fans. I think you're going to be well in this title race. In fact, can I give you a spoiler alert? I kind of think they're going to win the championship. But, because I don't trust Ferrari as far as I can throw them. And Red Bull, the reliability issues is concerning to say the least. At the start of this season, when you look at it, you think Max Verstappen, reigning world champion, Sergio Perez, a fantastic driver as well. And really and truly, they've got off to some horrible starts. Now, the car is fantastic in terms of pace. It's the fastest car on the grid, in my opinion. It's faster than the Ferraris. It's a car that is not necessarily, it's unreliable right now. But I do think they can solve those issues out as the season goes on. And they will be strong. There will be strong competitors in the title race this year for sure. However, when I'm hearing that, Mercedes are kind of like, yeah, they're out of the way. We can't see them. They're not going to be in this title race, including their own teammates. Not the drivers necessarily, because they can't speak like that. They want to win races. They want to win championships, right? But Toto Wolff absolutely shocked me not long ago when he said that, he kind of conceded the fact that Mercedes are no longer in the title race. And I find that to be absolutely ridiculous, absolute nonsense, okay? Mercedes are well and truly in this title race, okay? In fact, Mercedes are going to win races, yeah? They're going to win races. That's for damn sure. And we are only 3 races in. We are 3 races in. Okay, so let's see what happens over these European circuits. Now, the Emilia Romagna, man, that's going to take me a year to say that correctly. I always have a problem with that word every year. But Emilia Romagna Grand Prix is happening this weekend, right? And it includes a sprint weekend. Now, by the way, I learned some stuff about the sprint weekend and how the sprint sort of format is happening this year. We need to talk about that at some point. I'll probably do that in tomorrow's video. But because it's a sprint weekend, the likelihood of teams bringing upgrades could be unlikely, even though traditionally teams bring upgrades to European circuits. But because you only probably have like 1 hour of practice and then you got to kick off with qualifying sort of thing. I don't know if there's a practice 1 and 2, but there's definitely not a practice 3. So when you've got a practice 3, I think might happen on the day after. When you've already got qualifying on Friday, you need to get as much mileage as you can. And I don't think it's smart necessarily to bring new parts and try to test them out within the hour, because you probably will learn nothing, and you might cause more damage than good. So look, Mercedes won't expect to bring anything in terms of solid for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. However, there is still 20 races to go. There are 20 races to go, and people are ruling out Mercedes. This is hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious, okay? Upgrades will be turning up at some stage. Now, let me remind you something, guys, yeah? Let me pop this up on my screen, because I need to give people some, some memory of what we're talking about when we are talking about Mercedes. Guys, the race, look, I'll start off by saying this, right? They've not had a good start to the season. They have not by any stretch. Let me make this a bit bigger. Not by any stretch, right? They've not had a good start to the season, right? Ferrari, look at them. P1, 104 points at the start of the season. But guys, Mercedes are second. They're in second place in the constructors on 65 points. They're ahead of Red Bull. This team is ahead of Red Bull, considering all things. They haven't won a race this season, by the way. Ferrari have won 2 races. Red Bull have won a race. Yet Mercedes, who are there, consistency over intensity. I don't know. Maybe that's what's going to work for them. I'm not entirely sure. If we go to the driver's standings, okay, Charles Leclerc starting strong, okay? The title's not his. It's not his at the moment yet, right? He has got a good start. But what am I seeing in second? Who's that in second? George Russell. George Russell, ladies and gentlemen, is in second place. George Russell. Okay, now, has he won a race this year? Because the last time I checked, he hasn't. But he's got 37 points. Okay, he's ahead of a Ferrari, number one. He's ahead of a Ferrari. Yeah? Ferrari who look so good, look so dominant, who are they're amazing. And they've had a good start. I'm not knocking that. But he's ahead of Carlos Sainz. Guess what else? He's ahead of both Red Bulls. I'm seeing Sergio Perez in P4, and I'm seeing Max Verstappen P6. Now, Max has won a race. He's won a race this year. Yeah? Anybody else? Did anybody else know that? He's won a race this year. I'm not trying to take the mick, guys. Believe me, I'm not trying to take the mick. But when I hear things, and I'm hearing it for far too long, something needs to be addressed. Something needs to be said. Okay? Lewis Hamilton is in P5. Ahead of Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton hasn't won a race. Has Lewis Hamilton been on the podium this year? Has he been on the podium this year? Remember when he finished 10th and he said, whoa, do I get a point for that? He didn't even know points exist back in P10. So Hamilton's ahead of Verstappen and Russell is ahead of Perez. Yeah, so Mercedes drivers are ahead of Red Bull drivers, respectively. And Carlos Sainz in third. I thought Carlos Sainz was having a cracking year. The last time I checked, ladies and gentlemen, we are 3 races into the season. This idea that that Mercedes are out of the title race is utter garbage. We need to look at the stats, because if Mercedes are having a terrible start to the season, but I am seeing them P2 in constructors, and I'm seeing them P2 P2 and P5 in Drivers' Championship. What are we actually really saying here? If anything, if you're a Red Bull fan, if you're a Ferrari fan, this should be alarming. This should be alarming, because if they are that bad, then what are they doing up here in the table? What are they doing in the conversation? What are they doing in the mix? Mercedes are well and truly in this title fight. The idea that they're not is absurd. It's absurd. And you know what's funny? Not a lot of Ferrari fans have been chirping, or Ferrari fans that I've seen, let me say it that way, have been chirping up about Mercedes, right? But the lack of faith from Mercedes is hilarious to me. And it starts from the top. Toto Wolff, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You are well and truly in this title race. And when you've got somebody like Lewis Hamilton, I mean, we've watched Lewis Hamilton how many years now? Huh? Over 10 years, comfortably, right? Over 10 years, 15 years, you could argue. We've watched Lewis Hamilton in Formula One, and we've seen him do things that we just think, how on earth? How on earth has he done that? And there's going to be plenty more of that, guys, this season. Now, the porpoising issue is a big problem that they're having to solve out, right? The car is overweight, and they've got porpoising issues and so on and so forth. Now, the porpoising issue seems to be something that's going to take some time because a lot of these teams seem to struggle with this. A lot of teams on the grid seem to be struggling with this. But at the end of the day, they're going to get that situation solved. And once they do, because of course porpoising is affecting pace, isn't it? So once they get that sorted, my goodness, the last thing I want to be is anywhere in touching distance in terms of, or the last thing I want to see happening is Mercedes being in touching distance with me. Me, if you're a Ferrari fan, me, if you're a Red Bull fan, whatever. You do not want to see this team get it together because that's why they are where they are. This isn't them doing their best and they're here. This is them trying to work out what on earth is going on with our car. And yet they are P2, P5 in the drivers, and then P2 in the constructors, ahead of the Red Bulls, by the way. We've got more faith in Red Bull being in this title race, right? Fair enough, they've won a race this year. But what on earth are we hearing? What on earth are we hearing? Now, George Russell, big up to George Russell, because he mentioned something here that I want to pull up from Formula1News.co.uk. He says it's pretty crazy, you know. Russell hails pretty crazy results, but issues warnings about Mercedes upgrades. So he's saying, look, the start of the season has been a bit mad. Yeah, it's been a bit mad, okay? But the results, but let me tell you right now, he issues a warning about Mercedes upgrades. Yeah? Now, despite a stuttering start, okay, Mercedes sits second in the constructors' standings after 3 rounds this year. And that needs to be addressed. Now, they're not close in points. I'm not going to go, mental and be like, oh, look at them. They're so close. Like, if I go back to them again and I have a look real quickly, the points gap in terms of the constructors, yeah, it's hefty, isn't it? It's in the 40s. But you get a couple of race wins under your belt, okay? A couple of strong podium finishes, and that gap completely reduces, right? And it completely reduces. George Russell has revealed that his Mercedes team are not planning to bring upgrades to the car in the next race in Imola. The Silver Arrows have struggled for form since the turn of the new technical regulations this season, suffering from porpoising, adverse handling of the corners, and seemingly a power deficit to Ferrari and the Honda-powered Red Bulls. Much like many of their counterparts, they are also overweight, and it was perceived that all of the top 3 teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull, would be bringing upgrades to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix to counteract this, right? The problem with that is that they will only have an hour to test the changes they have implemented, and they would need to do so while prioritizing qualifying simulations ahead of Friday qualifying at the first sprint event of the season. And that's what we were mentioning earlier, that bringing upgrades might not be the smartest thing to do. For this reason, Ferrari have confirmed nothing major will appear on the F175 next weekend, and a similar philosophy appears to have been undertaken by Mercedes, right? Unfortunately, there's nothing substantial in the pipeline anytime soon, Russell said. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a number of races. I think they'll bring little things. There'll be incremental steps, but we recognize that our rivals are going to be doing the same. So it may not be clear to the outside world that we've made progress because Ferrari and Red Bull are going to make progress as well. So that's where you can have a good argument there that actually Red Bull and Ferrari, even though Mercedes are going to improve, so too are those two other teams. What I will say, however, is that Mercedes, when they improve things, they do it at a rate that is absolutely ridiculous. And sometimes they could just pop up. Because remember last year's season, right? I know it's different regulations, but remember last year's season where where Mercedes again did not have a good start, right? But then they were winning races, and you thought, something's not quite right here. Max Verstappen should have won that title last year by a long, long while. But because of Lewis Hamilton, because of the talent that they've got, because of the fact that Mercedes is a world-class team, they have won the constructors title for 8 years running. Okay, we can't laugh at that. We cannot ignore that. Yeah, this is a world-class team. Okay, my argument there, my view there is that Mercedes will improve far significantly than the Red Bulls and the Ferraris this year. That's just my opinion. Just because of the Mercedes I know. I don't want to ignore the Mercedes I've become accustomed to. Russell has made strong starts to 2022. He's outqualified teammate Sir Lewis Hamilton once and outraced him twice in the opening 3 rounds of the year, achieving his first podium with the Silver Arrows in Australia last weekend. Big up to George Russell on that. Their superior reliability compared to Red Bull has helped them to second in the constructor standing. This is important. Superior reliability compared to the Red Bull. Yeah, they've clearly got a car that makes it to the end. Yeah, in Formula One, you've got to at least finish in order to get something, in order to get some points, in order to get anything. Okay, so let's bear that in mind. Superior reliability compared to the Red Bull has helped them to second in the constructors, right? But they are realistic, still a long way adrift of the pace of the Milton Keynes side and the Scuderia. Yeah, the pace is not there. Therefore, the results have done little in Russell's mind to alleviate the pressure on Mercedes to make considerable improvements. I'd love to say that we've made a lot of progress, but I think we've got to look at the lap times, and we haven't closed the gap at all to those guys, he explained. We know we've got a lot of work to do, but I have faith that we can get there. Well, at least someone's got faith in that Mercedes camp. Okay, at least George Russell. Thank you finally for having some faith, because your team principal, your team boss, whoever it is far too pessimistic in my opinion. We know the potential is in the car, and we've got a lot of work to do to extract that performance. And that's the thing. It's not like they don't think the car has what it takes. They know it has. It's just a matter of how do we get it out, right? More time, if you're out of a title race, it's because you just know, listen, this year is a write-off. The car is not good enough. There is no point being here, right? But in this case, they believe the car there is actually something in there. We need to just extract it. We need to get it out. We need to know what's going on. But yeah, as he says, the potential in the car. And we've got a lot of work to do to extract that performance, right? It won't happen overnight. It won't happen in the next race. But I do think in time we will get there. We will get there. So for the time being, if we keep picking up these results, it keeps us in the mix. And here's the thing as well. He says it won't happen overnight and it won't happen in the next race. But here's what I do think, George. And who am I yet, right? You know, you're the driver, right? But I think with Mercedes, and I've seen this before for Mercedes, it happens sooner than people think. It won't happen overnight. It might not happen in the next race. It will happen sooner than people think. Just keep that in mind. And as long as they keep picking up these results, as he's mentioned, it keeps them in the mix. Yeah. The Britain affirms that Mercedes are both were behind both McLaren and Alpine pace-wise in Melbourne, but their longevity during the race, strong reliability, and an element of fortune have mitigated the deficit somewhat. And I think that's very important, by the way. Like, I know Christian Horner said something like, I'd rather have a fast car that's unreliable than a reliable car that's slow. However, I think the strong reliability is what's giving them points at the moment. Is what's giving Mercedes points early doors, and not necessarily the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls are getting points. Don't get me wrong, but you know it's questionable. Neither is right or wrong. I don't think. I think it's just a case of preference. You know, what do you prefer? I think it's credit to the team back in Brackley and Brixworth, because obviously we want more performance, and we are a step behind Ferrari and Red Bull in terms of pace, Russell said. But you've got to be there at the end if you want to pick up the points, and that's what we've done on a number of occasions now, right? They've been picking up points. And also bear in mind what their testing was like. Okay, sorry, I sound like a Mercedes fan. Don't get me wrong. I'm not necessarily a Mercedes fan. I don't hate them. I don't necessarily love them or like them as such. I don't mind them. They're there, right? But just remember where they've come from already. The leaps and bounds from testing to now, okay, should already be giving you some sort of signal to say, hang on a minute, maybe there's something to watch out for here, right? But anyway, I mean, we finished. I mean, this weekend we were fifth fastest behind those two guys, and obviously McLaren and Alpine, and currently standing P3 on the podium and P2 in the championship is pretty crazy. Yes, George Russell finished third in the Australian Grand Prix. Mercedes walked away from Albert Park as the highest scorers after retirements for both Red Bull's Max Verstappen and Ferrari's Carlos Sainz. Let's read that again. Mercedes walked away from Albert Park as the highest scorers. Yeah? In Melbourne, they walked away as the highest scorers. Yeah. That should tell you something. That, people, should tell you something about what we think Mercedes are going to be doing this year. They left Melbourne with the highest scorers. Now, they would have never thought that in a million years. Carlos Sainz, of course, had an absolute nightmare, had an absolute Western. And, you know, Red Bull continuous reliability issues is what's costing them points at this moment in time. However, Mercedes seem to be getting both cars over the finish line, right? Whether it's fourth and fifth, and or, you know, in the top three or whatever it may, wherever they may be, they are getting the points. Hence why they are second in the constructors. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this. I need to know your thoughts on Mercedes' fortunes this year. Do we think that Mercedes will be well and truly in this? In fact, here's the thing. They're going to finish top 2 in the Constructors' Championship. As much as all this hoo-ha is about Ferrari and Red Bull, who's going to win the title, who's going to win the Constructors, Ferrari could probably win the Constructors because they've got 2 cars and 2 drivers that are pretty decent. However, Ferrari, I just don't trust you. I just don't trust you. That's the truth of the matter. Now, in terms of Mercedes, they're getting both cars over the line, and they're quite close to each other as well, more often than not. More often than not. So let me ask you the question, people. Comment down below. Like the video if you like this kind of video. Sorry for the rant a little bit there. A little bit of a rant in the morning. Never usually good for your health. But I couldn't help but say, do you know what? I need to talk about this subject because it's getting ridiculous out in these streets. Okay? The streets are talking and they're saying Red Bull and Ferrari, they're off. They've gone clear. Mercedes who? Mercedes what? And then I got Toto Wolff doubting, already conceding titles. Race 3? Now, he could be bluffing. He could be bluffing for all we know. And if he is, you fooled me, Toto. Hats off to you. You fooled me. But I will say this. Mercedes are nowhere out of this title. Are you kidding me? They will finish in the top 2. They will win races. And I think a Mercedes driver, more likely than not Lewis Hamilton, is going to win the title this year. I'll leave you with that, people. Comment down below your thoughts. Where will Mercedes finish in the Constructors this year? And where will both drivers finish in the Drivers' Championship this year? With that said, people, have a good rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk sprint race discussions. We'll do like a preview of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix as well. We'll do some previews. Get your predictions in ahead of the race weekend. But with that, people, it's life.